one of the things about me is that I do love big too. And when making friends, it's easy for me to like them and form that bond, but it's hard for me to allow them the opportunity to get to know me. I keep it very focused, right? It's hard for me to let them see me. I don't start with vulnerability. I just become a safe space for them to be vulnerable. That's how I friend. It's because I'm scared of being hurt. It's because when I've been vulnerable, it's been hurt. It's because, you know what I mean? I'm very anxious about that.
We'll make it out and fall in love tonight.
Hey, you say something before?
I was going to say it's probably a good idea if I silence my phone.
That is a great idea. Go ahead and do
So I'm
that.
going to do that and see that the text that I sent a while ago actually got a response. And okay, hold on. Pause. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to stop it.
Great.
Okay.
That's the opposite of silencing your
To
phone.
the person who sent me that text, that reply
You're doing great.
that I haven't responded to in
You think they're gonna
almost
be all
an
right?
hour, and now I see it, and it's going to be another hour plus before I respond.
Is it a friend?
It is a friend.
Interesting.
I know. They're going to think I hate them now because I didn't respond. They're not that. No.
They might.
I don't
You
think
never
this
know.
one will.
You never know what your friends think.
Right? You
Unless
never
you
know.
ask.
I feel like this one's more secure that probably is not even noticed
Not
that I
going to
haven't
panic.
responded yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they're way better off than I am.
Oh, right? Me too.
How are you feeling?
I am. I'm not at my 100%. I'm not my A game. I am not my all-star team right now, but I feel like I don't know why I was going to give more playoff, like sport references. It's because I'm an athlete now.
You are an athlete.
Right? So I'm definitely in the playoffs. I'm just not in the championships.
What's their movie? I'm thinking of a movie where she's like, I know, like, ding, ding. Like, there's some movie where some woman is like, hit the ball, play. I know sport references. What's that movie?
I don't know.
I gave you like next to nothing to go on,
I know.
by the way.
You're the movie person, not me.
Yeah.
Also, that sounded so judgmental.
I sounded judgmental?
No, I'm just teasing you. If we could remember the movie, it would totally not look that way. But you're like, some woman was like, ding, ding. So
Right. I'm not going to remember the
I am
movie.
sassy.
Good.
I am really sassy. I'm really I'm slightly confrontational right now.
Good.
So
Sass it up.
It's not fun for you. I feel like you say something, I'm like, oh, let me pick it apart.
I have a challenge for you this episode. Are you ready?
Is it to not be sassy?
It's not to not be
Good.
sassy. Sass
then
away.
I might have a chance then.
This is
What
a
is
sass safe zone.
it? Sass safe zone.
This zone is safe for sassing.
My sassy.
By the way, S's
are
terrible for podcasts.
Are they
We know
terrible
that.
for podcasts?
It's all the S's.
Wow.
So this is a safe zone for sassing.
Let's do it.
We both do it.
What
and
do we do?
I've been trying to bring awareness to my...
Are you going to talk to me about grabbing the mic?
I'm not talking about grabbing the mic.
What are you talking
I'm
about?
talking about the head tilt.
The hell?
How you doing? What's going
It's
on
because
today?
I'm leaning for the microwave.
What's going on?
Not the microwave. What is this? What am I talking into?
The microphone.
That's the thing. I'm leaning for the microphone.
Which is not needed.
Okay, so should I lean the other way?
Nope, don't need to do either. You can just keep your head straight up.
But I finally knew what to do with my head. Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Sometimes you set me up too good, babe. Okay, we're talking about friendships today. And we're going to open up and express and share how we navigate friends and how we have navigated friends. You wanted to give a caveat. Or not a caveat, but you wanted to introduce. Do you remember we talked about it on the way home?
Yeah, I did. It's like, this is, like, obviously we've been trying friends. We've been trying to do friends. We're trying to be friends. We're trying to do the friend thing for our lives. But as far as, like, really trying to go about it in a conscious way as opposed to a reactive how we used to always do it way, it's new to us. We have worked really hard on getting a secure attachment in our relationship. We worked really hard on working on our relationship as far as like that goes. So our attachment styles, how we communicate, how we show up with each other. And we are, as far as friendships goes, we haven't spent the same amount of time devoted on that. So this is now we are shifting up gears. We're creating healthy relationships, not just our primary relationship, but with friends. We're creating healthy relationships and we're kind of new to that. So this is an evolving process, and we're talking about our experiences. We're talking about what we think. We're not saying this is how you do friendships right. We're like, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we have done. This is how it's working out. And this is like what we're leaning towards. And we're probably going to talk about it a lot because you're smiling at me. I feel like I'm being silly.
You're not being silly.
So it's just like, it's a work in progress, and it's more about our opinions and experiences on this episode as opposed to something that we've been actively working on for a really, really long time.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on friends for years, right? In some way, I think. Should we go back and talk about the beginning of friendships for us? Do you remember your very first friend?
My very first friend, let me think. Oh, this is interesting. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I don't remember my very first friend, but I remember my very first boyfriend.
Interesting.
So I've always been relationship oriented more than friends. Friends. And now I'm like, okay, we need a little bit of balance here.
My very first friend that I remember, at least, like I'm trying to really I want to be genuine here. I'm trying to think if I know of a friend prior to this friend. And I don't think I do.
Okay.
I'm sure that I had like playmates as a kid, right?
Yeah.
But that's a little bit different.
Okay.
This is more like somebody that I thought of as a friend. Like this was my first friend.
Okay.
Alan Mortson. Alan Mortson was my first friend. What's up, Al? Alan, I don't know if Alan listens to the podcast.
I don't know. I love that I knew that.
Right?
I love that I knew that.
You know him.
Not that just that I know him, but that like you have a lot of friends that you've had for your life, right? But I love that even in that group, I knew who was your very first friend. I love that I know that about you.
I've probably told you this story before, but I'm going to tell the story about how Alan and I met.
You should.
So it's sixth grade. What was that, like 1988, 87? How old would I have been?
I thought it was first grade.
First grade.
Okay.
Sorry, I was thinking I was 6 years old.
I was like, I guess I don't remember the story right. I thought I did.
Nailed it. So I'm 26 years old. It's first grade, and Alan is in the same class that I'm in. And our teacher, Mrs. Addy, shout out to Mrs. Addy as well, she essentially, what would happen is Alan and I were both very competitive. And there was a day at recess where him and I were getting into a fight, probably, I think, like for the 15th time or something. It seemed like a regular occurrence where we would go outside to recess, proceed to play whatever, right? Whatever kids are playing in first grade, and end up in a fight, end up, trying to beat each other up. And our teacher, Mrs. Addy, got so frustrated with that she kept us both in from recess, or brought us in both. I don't remember if it was on the day where she's like, you guys are coming in from recess, or you're not even going out for recess. But we had to stay in, and she forced us to like be friends. She's like, you guys are staying in. And I don't remember if honestly, I don't remember exactly what happened other than we couldn't go outside, and now we had to be inside and like watched together, like we were being punished. But in the end, we ended up being friends.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that it worked out that way. That's really cool. That was risky.
Well, I don't think it was Mrs. Zaddy's first rodeo.
Yeah.
She was a long time first grade teacher. So my guess is she knew how to handle two crazy 6-year-old boys that Alan grew up with older brothers. He's got way more brothers than I do. He's got a bigger family than I do. And he knew how to, stand up for himself and roughhouse and play around. And
as did you.
As did Craig.
Yeah.
So that Alan was my first friend. And he still is a friend of mine today, 40 plus years later, something like that, 35, 36, 7, 8, 9. Long time later, I have another couple of friends that are from elementary school age and middle school age. And growing up, I thought, well, let me reframe, right? It's not that I thought, it's that my entire childhood, adolescence, teenage years, I did friends. I did friends really well, I thought.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends. I wasn't lacking in the friend department. But I was always incredibly anxious about friends. It was one of those things that I never felt settled with friends. I never felt like my friends really liked me. I always felt like a third wheel with all of my friends. Even when, I I guess that's not true. I guess when it was just like me and one friend, but a lot of times growing up, it was me and a bunch of friends. It was me and a group of friends, right? I spent a lot of time hanging out with 3, 4, 5 guys all at the same time doing stuff, riding bikes around town, having fun. And so I was always feeling like I, was on the outside of a friend group. I never quite felt like I was part of all of these different friend groups that I, in fact, was a part of, and that I had friends, tons of friends. But the programming that I had and the just really just kind of like, I don't want to say my nature, because I don't think it's truly my nature. I think it's that anxious attachment and not knowing how to do friends right, and being afraid, and not having. I thought about this leading up to this episode as we were talking, that we were going to have this conversation. I don't remember seeing my parents do friends a lot.
Yeah.
Like you and I went out the other night with some friends and had drinks and dinner and everything like that. And it's not that I think I remember my parents spending time with adults, but it wasn't a lot, and it wasn't on a regular basis. And whether or not they did or not, I just didn't see it. So I have nothing to kind of base it off of. And same thing, I don't think my brothers had friends like I had friends, right? So I didn't have a lot of examples of how to do friendship. So I was basing it off of, just whatever else we based things off of back in those days. Do you remember I know you said you didn't remember your first friend, but what is the time period in your life where friends became kind of important for you?
We had, I'll definitely talk about that, but I don't know how to do that in like a quick thing. We had a very different experience with friends.
Yeah.
Your friend life was very different than my friend life. And that's, it's all right. It's just, I don't know that I can sum it up the same way.
But we have a long form podcast,
right?
Which means we get to talk for as long as we want.
Okay. Let's see. I was really thinking, I'm like, my first friend, I think I actually do know my first friend. And I feel like we were, gosh, I don't know, because we weren't friends, like we don't keep in touch now. We don't. Anyways, my friendship story is, it's really complicated it's like I actually don't want to talk about it, because it's just pretty non-existent. It's pretty like crappy and unhealthy. First of all, it was, there was a lot of rotation, because I grew up on a military base. So there was a lot of rotation, but there were people that worked on the base that weren't military. So those were like the kids that stayed there. They were either, some of them were retired military, but there was a civilian hiring area, or contractors as well. There was government jobs and contracting jobs. So if there were those that were not military, they lived on Dugway, or they lived
just outside
of
the base.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm totally nervous that I said that. Like, I don't know why.
That you said you lived on a military base?
No, I just this is really vulnerable for me.
The friends thing?
And so I'm feeling like, I want to be cryptic. I don't want to say too much. I just it's really vulnerable, and it's kind of been a sore spot for me. It's been a sore spot. So, going through, I was always trying to fit in, and I just didn't. I just didn't fit in, and I wasn't secure. I was a very hurt kid. And so it was really hard for me to make friends. I kept trying to morph into who I thought they wanted me to be. And also I played the protector role. If I saw somebody getting picked on, I would, I would just take it on and it was also defensiveness too. Like if we had a friend and somebody didn't like the friend, then it was like this whole thing. But I tried really hard. I friended hard, right? But I didn't get friended hard back, it felt like. And there was just a lot of space. I felt there was a lot of drama. And it was always also I look at it now and I used to think, man, that was really hard. I was always on the outside, and it felt like I either helped friends become friends again, I didn't try to pit one off each other, but I would always end up being pitted against. So there was like, for a while, there was a group of us that had like, there was like 3 of us in particular. And it was just like, it was always changing. There was more like, I wouldn't hang out with the healthy friends either. When we look at it, it was like, I was hanging out with people that were just as broken as me. There was damage. We were having coping mechanisms. We weren't making good choices. We were making, I'm going to escape.
You're being so cryptic.
From how, like, I was a party kid.
Yeah.
I was a party kid. I started drinking really young. I started getting into all that stuff really young.
Those were all your type of friends?
So those were my type of friends. And I felt better there because I wanted the escape. I didn't want to be in my body. I didn't want to. And I also didn't have like the ability to say no. I didn't, I had that taken and I didn't know how to establish it. So it was always like, it was just, and they were just as broken as me. I see that now.
Sorry, I don't mean to push pause on you, but do you remember having friends in elementary school and middle school time frame? Or was it just?
No, I do. I just don't remember a lot of that time.
Okay.
And like there was, like I remember little things, like I had a couple friends that were the same, that lived outside of the base with me, just like right outside of it, that I went to school with pretty much all throughout elementary. And we would hang out. Sometimes we would hang out at houses. We would have, like, they were a part of the circle at times. It just, like the one, I think I have this one friend that, like, it's kind of like, I felt like we were really good friends and we just kind of grew apart, we just kind of grew apart. And that happened a couple of times. And then I got into middle school, high school, which is the same building, and things became more toxic. I was always trying to hang out with other older people. Always felt I resonated with older people. I would hear that. And of course, the older guys were like, you're very mature. You're very mature. So it was really difficult for me to make connections with my own age, but I did. And I tried. And there was always the drama. Somebody was always on the outs. Somebody was always singled out. And for me, my version of the story is it was usually me.
It felt like it was you most of the time.
Like it might be different, but I feel like they would be like, no, it was totally you. Like it was totally you. We didn't like you. And there, it came with different degrees of difficulty. It came with different degrees of pain. Sometimes it would really just fucking crush me. Sometimes it would just crush me. And I would get to like hang out with other people at times. I hung out with my cousins a couple of times, and I say a couple of times, but I remember like my first experience at a healthy boundary as a friend. And I was the one that had the boundary put on me, and I had never experienced it. And it totally rocked me. And it's like, I wanted to do better in that space after that. I don't know that I did, but I definitely wanted to.
Do you want to share what that was?
Yeah, I'll share that. So it was one of the times that I was on the outs, and I really liked my friends, I really liked the ones that, and I wanted to hang out, and I loved when we go get drunk, and we're always out smoking, it was all the things that, we get to go smoke and drink, and
have a good time.
That's what I liked to do.
Yeah.
So I navigated like the people that liked to do that too. I liked,
Right?
They
were hanging out behind the school too.
We literally like smoked on the school steps, and was like in the back in the arts and crafts room. And that's a story for somebody that,
Stop kicking the floor, baby.
I'm so nervous. This is so hard talking about friends. I think I need a break.
From the friend conversation, or just from talking?
I was going to say the boundaries one. Like, this is really hard.
I know. I'm really curious as to
really
why.
Hard. It's because I don't trust. And I'm really bad at friends. I'm really, really bad at it. It's really scary for me, and it's really hard. And like, it just doesn't go well for me. It doesn't go well. But the boundary story I was going to share is it was one of the times that I was on the outs, and I struggled with being alone. when I was a kid. I was like, I don't like to be alone. I can't handle it. It was really, really hard for me to be alone without friends. I didn't. And I saw one of my cousins and her friend. They were just like sitting on the floor in the hallway eating lunch. And I came and sat by them, started talking, and we started hanging out. And I just would have lunch with them every day. And it was fun. They weren't the wild kids. They were the well-behaved kids for the most part. They weren't getting into all the substances like me. And at one point, my other friends and I made up. And I just started going in, like, because lunch was like the time we'd go and hang out. We'd get our smoke breaks. We'd, all of that. I just started hanging out with them. And at some point I went and I saw them. I'm like, oh, I miss them. I'm going to go sit by them again. And I went and sat by them. And apparently it had been a long time since I had done that. And I was just like, I want to go hang out with them. Nothing was going on, but I came and I sat down, and the one friend got up and just like closed her lunchbox and stormed off. I was like, what is that about? And the other one got up and followed her, and she's like, and left. But later she told me it's because she felt like I dropped them. I just dropped them. And she was so mad that we were friends. And then when the other ones came back in, I just dropped them. And she was like, yeah, I'm not just going to sit here and be your friend now.
Okay. So it was the kind of thing where you were hanging out with the rough crowd, and then you started hanging out with the not so rough crowd, and they felt like, is that what it is? Like you dropped them, or?
No, okay, I'll try and tell it again real fast. So crazy friends.
Yes.
Banished me.
Okay.
Into the, I was ostracized. I was like,
yeah, you were pushed out of that,
kicked out of the group, and I connected with others. I connected with,
the not crazy friends,
the not crazy
so crazy
ones, the ones that like a little bit of healthy boundaries, and then like formed a bond, and then made up with the other ones, continued, go back to hanging out the way we were. And then when I tried to like come back and hang out, I had let too much time pass.
I see.
And so it looked like, you know what I mean? It looked like I backup friends. It looked like, and I just didn't say anything. And it didn't occur to me that I needed to. That's like the other part. It didn't occur to me that I needed to actually spend time with them. It didn't occur to me that I needed to check in. Like I was at fault there. Like that's totally like, and the one that got up and had the boundary and didn't participate with that, I was like, what is that? It was it always like, I felt so bad. I felt so guilty, and I knew like she was right. And I felt like crap. And I think I communicated that I was going to do better, and I did for a little bit, but then I stopped and just stopped hanging out with them again. And so I was just like, cool, I never tried again. Like, clearly that's not going to work. Clearly I can't work in that space. So that friendships just all kind of went away. And I was like, that was kind of a reiterated, I don't do healthy friendships. Also, I didn't connect well with all the church girls. I definitely didn't fit in with the church girls. So then it became, I can only really be friends with toxic people because they're the only ones that I have anything in common with. And so that was the kind of friendships that I would always seek out and maintain, because I was also very, I was damaged. I was broke. I was toxic. I didn't know how to, and that was the same with relationships too. I didn't seek out the healthy relationships because it's like, who's going to want this bag of trash? Serious. It was pretty.
That's how you felt.
Yeah, that's totally how I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not how I feel now. Now I seek out healthy relationships. I seek out healthy relationships, and I am becoming very aware of my worth. And it doesn't mean that now I'm checking boxes. It's just like, I'm okay with all my unchecked boxes.
Do you remember seeing your parents hang out with friends, spend time with friends?
So when I was little, they did. When I was little, they had couple friends, and something would always go wrong. And like couple friends never really stuck around. Like the one that I remember like really being an issue, there was like an affair, their relationship broke up, so friends go away. But My dad didn't like really do the friend thing. He didn't like my mom doing the friend thing either. So my mom has friends. My mom has like lifelong friends. My mom, like when she went to work after she had me, like she's had the same, like work was like high school. She got those friends young and they stayed. They're still like they're friends. The ones that are still alive are friends. And she used to go do things like sometimes they would go for an overnighter, and he made sure that I knew how unhappy he was with her about that. And that was hard, you know?
Yeah.
It was just like, he always made it really hard for her, and to the point where it was just too hard for her. And so she would do friends at a distance because she was also, you know, protecting secrets and keeping her peace at home. So I had a terrible example.
Yeah, not really great examples, right? I think that's a thing that stands out to me as we're talking about this is I didn't have great examples, you didn't have great examples, and it sounds like for both of us, a big chunk of how we navigated friendships as well as how we saw ourselves in those friendships was through that lens, obviously, of how we saw ourselves. And because both of us really had low self-esteem and had some already, you know, pretty ingrained programming about our self-worth and where we kind of measured up, it makes sense that we both kind of had, I don't know if we necessarily, I mean, it sounds like you had some friends. Like I'm not painting the picture that you didn't have friends or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was obviously ideal.
Yeah, they weren't healthy relationships. They weren't good relationships,
Yeah,
and they aren't
what kind
any
of relationships are you having at 14, 15, 16 years old?
Really terrible, traumatic ones.
Yeah.
That was full of a lot of crap, and I haven't maintained any of them. I mean, I'm still friends with a few of them on Facebook, but
yeah,
there's nothing. Like, I don't look out their stuff. I see it pop up occasionally. Like, they could have all unfriended me now, and I wouldn't even know unless, you know, I went looking, but I don't. We just don't. There's no connection.
Mm-hmm.
There's no connection. I'm not seeking it out. They're not seeking it out, and we're all good with that. There was one that was hard for me to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one friendship that I wanted to build, and I just fucked that up too.
Isn't that the worst when you like lose a friend that you actually love and that you want to keep? And like, that's the worst.
Yeah.
I have some real painful breakups with friends over the years, over the course of life, right? Where like, it just sucks. I know we talk a lot about, you know, people are in your lives for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And with the exception of, you know, I've got these 3-4 good group of friends from adolescence, from elementary, middle school time frame. And we're still friends today, but the quality of the friendship is not where I'd like it to be. It's, you know, and for obvious reasons, right? We're in Tennessee, all of them are in Utah, but, you know, even when we were in Utah, the quality of those friendships weren't quite what I wanted them to be. And that's obviously okay. I think that what fascinates me today when I think about how I handle friends and how I kind of move through the space of friendships, and we had to go through the whole learning curve of like having new friends when we moved to Tennessee and learning how to make friends in like a healthy way, or in the best kind of healthiest way that we could in the moment and at the time. And I think that's a really important part of what we can talk about. But prior to that, I don't feel like I really had, I don't want to say I wasn't a good friend. I think I've always been a good friend, but I do think that I've always come from the perspective of that anxious, you know, like, again, we're looking, I don't know if we're, you know, always looking at it this way, but we will reflect and look at it through the lens of like attachment styles. And I'm very much an anxious, attached person when it comes to friendships.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I feel securely attached in any of my friendships. And I don't know if I'm sure there's some friendship out there, or, you know, where I'm avoidant and when I'm kind of on that end of the spectrum with it. But by and large, I feel like I'm always in this anxious place with friends, full of anxiety, full of doubt, full of, they just don't like me. They don't want to be friends with me. I'm second guessing everything that's taking place and everything that's going on. So if you haven't heard yet, we picked up pickleball and we're having a blast. It's super, super fun. And if you haven't started playing yet, I hope that you do soon. And if you do, we want to help you by avoiding what we did. See, when we started playing pickleball, we just went on Amazon and found some paddles that looked cool. Little did we know, but they actually were hurting our pickleball game and holding us back from being the absolute best pickleball players that we could be. And when we found out that there was a pickleball paddle company here in Tennessee, actually not too far from where we live, we got super excited. Element 6 was started by a couple of brothers who were passionate about the sport and decided to go in and make their own paddles because they needed something that served their purposes a little bit better. Lucky for us, they're now sponsoring the podcast. And I can tell you from experience that their paddles definitely make a difference. The very first time I picked up their paddle and just held it in my hand, I knew I was going to be a better pickleball player as soon as I started playing with it. And it turns out I totally am. They have paddles for everybody, for the beginner, the intermediate, and the pro level. Head over to our website, stephandcraig.co, and click on the link for E6 pickleball paddles. I highly recommend their brand new one, the Torrent, which is what we play with. When you're ready to buy, make sure to use the code Steph and Craig. Not only will you save 10%, but the guys over at E6 are also going to send you out a free gift along with your order. So pick up pickleball, pick up a new paddle from Element 6. We hope to see you on the court soon. Not too long ago, I went down the rabbit hole of trying to find us some new clothes that didn't have all sorts of toxic stuff in them. I was tired of wearing synthetic material when I worked out, when I did things like jiu-jitsu and yard work and hiking and everything like that, because it wasn't really breathable and it started to stink a lot as well. Well, lucky for me, I found Woolly clothing. Woolly uses natural merino wool, and I'm a huge fan. All of their clothes are super soft and they feel really, really good next to your skin. Their clothes are naturally moisture repellent, so when you're wearing them and working out, it almost feels like it's cooling you off. They're also odor resistant, so they don't stink after you wear them. They have a great line of men and women's clothing, and if you've never tried merino wool, I highly recommend Woolly. I've got their boxers on right now. Every episode of the podcast, I wear one of their V-neck shirts. I'm really excited for where the weather starts to change and it starts to cool off a little bit, because then I get to put on my Woolly hoodie again. Head over to our website at stephandcraig.co and click on the link for Woolly. And when you're ready to check out, be sure to use the code Steph and Craig. You'll save 15% on your order. Show them some love and get yourself a great pair of merino wool socks or underwear, or boxers, shirts, pants, shorts, tank tops, workout gear, you name it, Woolly has it. And I've been that way my whole life. I remember being that way as a kid. I remember having all of these interactions and things like that, and then just second guessing all of it, thinking about why they didn't call back, or, all of those things that kids go through when it comes to friends. I feel like I'm still kind of in that space. We have a good group of people now that are in our lives. We have a community of connections and relationships and friends now here in Tennessee, which I'm really grateful for. But I still come at that space from this anxious attached style, where I'm constantly thinking about like if we hear about our friends and they did something on Saturday night or whatever, right? That from a healthy, secure, attached perspective, I'm like, yeah, that's fine, obviously, right? People get to go do whatever the hell they want to go do with their life. We don't need to be invited to every single thing that the people that we know in our lives are doing, right? Our friends. And the part of me is always just like, well, they didn't invite us. They hate us. I don't even know what's going on. What did we do wrong? What did I do wrong? That's always the narrative. Yeah. And it sucks. I hate it. Like it's heavy. It's a heavy thing to carry. And currently I'm trying to learn how not to carry it, because I know it's not true. I know it's just programming. It's just how I see myself, right? I think there's a big part of the programming that goes into friendships also. I feel like there's a component of it for me that is connected to my older brothers, because growing up, there was this rule that my mom implemented with the three of us, because I've got two older brothers. And the rule was everybody plays or nobody plays. So what that meant was my older brothers, who were, 2 and 4 years older than me, were doing things that, they were doing, not things that they wanted to do with a little brother who couldn't do the same things at the same time. I just wasn't ready to do the things that they wanted to do, right? From just a perspective of growing up, right? I'm 4, they're 6, they're 8, they're more able to do things. They can ride bikes, they can go places. They're just more rambunctious. And I couldn't yet because I wasn't old enough yet. So she came up with that rule. So then they always had to include me, which meant I always felt like a third wheel. I always felt like I was being included in something with people that didn't really want me there.
Interesting.
And I think that led to a huge program especially with like male friends.
Yeah.
Where if I'm hanging out with a group of them, then they don't really want me there. So my solution for that is I have to become so like worthy of their friendship and their love and their attention. So then it's becoming like the craziest version of Craig that can possibly exist, so that I'm entertaining, and that's how they like me. That's how I kind of have earned my place, because I make people laugh, or I make people, like I shock people with the things that I'm doing, because somehow that was another thing that I picked up along the way, where I thought this was going to be a way to make friends, right? Scare them, do something that freaks them out, so then they think I'm cool. But I don't think it really, there were so many times where I was like, I would do something that was really, really fucking crazy and weird. And people were just like, that's really crazy and weird. That was a little extreme. Why'd you do that? And I'm like, wasn't it awesome? And they're like, no, not really. So it didn't really work. It backfired.
Yeah.
But
that's rough. That anxious making you try to, seek that approval. I did anxious friends throughout the whole time. And by the way, I think your tricks are really cool. And I'm glad that you're not so crazy, wildly trying to, I'm glad that you got that out in your younger years, right? Oh yeah, you're still very, very brave. Very brave. I like stuttered and slurred my words there because I can think of times that sometimes I'm like, but yeah, so I did the anxious thing. I was very, very, very anxious. And I was always like, now do you like me? Now do you like me? Now do you like me? If I do this, if I say this, if I choose this, now do you like me? Now do I fit in? I wanted to be included so bad. I was very, very anxious. And like that shifted. And it shifted. Like I would also choose like who, I guess I would pick the ones that I thought were safer, even though they weren't, the ones that like healthy friends I thought were too good. And so I didn't view that as a safe relationship, because I knew sooner or later, they're going to be like, we're done. Like the unhealthy ones would even, you know what I mean? So I would pick the ones that I thought I had the best chance at maintaining. And I would try and try and try and try really, really hard. And then relationships would just take over, relationships. I would also mimic the relationship, right? I would find partners that did not like me having friends, and the isolation became, pretty strong. And by the time, like a couple of years into it wasn't even that, like I didn't bring friends to our relationship.
To our relationship? Yeah, you really didn't.
Yeah. I just I was very, and it came to where I was very.
Did your ex get him in the divorce?
Definitely not.
Sorry, that was kind of a joke. But.
No, it was funny. It was funny. Yeah, definitely not.
And that funny guy Craig over there.
Sorry. No. It was just a really unhealthy dynamic, and I was very isolated, and it took me a while to even try to let somebody in. And I remember when that first one, one of the neighbor and I became really good friends, and it was awesome. It was awesome to have that neighbor friend. And she kind of had a turd of a husband as well, only it was a little bit, not quite as extreme, but we had this thing where we had each other's back, and she knew how bad mine was. And so it was, if it gets bad enough, just get outside and yell. Get outside and yell. And of course I could never get outside and yell, but we had this connection of where we would hang out. Sometimes, we both had little kids, both had little babies the same age. We were both we trauma bonded, and they moved. And the ones that moved into the house after, we also formed a bond with our little kids, and our kids were friends, but it wasn't I wasn't telling her about, wasn't able to share that I was in an unsafe space. I wasn't able to. It was very much I had to put on a persona. It was very clear that I had to put on personas for the neighborhood. But I just was I became very avoidant. And it was really difficult to break through. And once you break through, I want to be friends. Once you break through, then there's a little bit of that anxious there. And one started to break through at work, and it turned out to be a really bad situation. And so I was hurt. And then also not doing that again. You're my switch would go, and I just my feelings, my friendship was just done. Right? Because it was such an unhealthy one anyways. But yeah, I'm very avoidant when it comes to friends. I'm nice. I will connect. I'm authentic. It's not just I'm polite and placating. I like people. And I'll show up for people, but I don't allow many really a space in my heart, not a space in my heart. That's not the right words.
You don't let them into the inner circle.
I don't let them
into that kind of
yeah.
inner fold where, you're super vulnerable and.
Yes. But once that happens, if that happens, right? If it goes there, and once you're in the inner circle, I'm very attached to you. Then I become very attached, and it depends. I've definitely gone anxious. There's, one friend right now that I got very attached to, and I feel okay, we're good, we're past this. And then they reach out, and I'm okay, let's hang out. I'm still trying to find that level there. And I don't like that. I don't like not having my independence in that space. I don't like having that anxious, which makes it harder for healthy friends to be allowed in my inner circle.
Yeah.
To be allowed in that space. But once you're there, if they choose to want to stick around for this shit show, right? If they choose to be is it worth getting in your inner circle? I think it is. But also, I don't expect anybody to put in that effort. And so I'm trying to do things differently now.
What are you doing differently? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we're doing friends differently now today than we ever have before. Because I think a level of, like you said at the beginning of the podcast, where we have focused so intently on our relationship and kind of creating a secure relationship, one where we feel safe to be ourselves in, one where we feel safe to also have friends in our life, right? I know that you had a lot of that trauma from your first marriage, where all the chaos surrounding it and things like that, that it just wasn't a safe thing. So it took quite a while before I think you felt safe to have friends and be friends and to have kind of friendships in our lives and in our individual lives and then our relationship life and things like that. And I think what's changed for me, because of how much work we've done on our relationship and because of looking at it through that lens of secure attachment and anxious attachment and avoidant attachment, it's helped me a lot to see how much how anxiously attached I am to friendships and how I don't do them typically in healthy ways with boundaries at all. I'm kind of you want to be friends? Cool, we're going to be the best friends ever and forever, and we're going to be forever. We're going to be friends forever, like you and me forever. That's it. I'm looking for a Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid kind of best friendship. I want a Wyatt Earp and a Val Kilmer. I want really trauma bonded, toxic, unhealthy. We're never, ever, ever leaving each other's side, no matter what kind of friendship, right? Which is not healthy.
Check yes or no.
Right. Check yes or no. I'm going to slide the note over, leave it in your locker. Do you want to be best friends forever? Goose and Maverick. Anyways, getting to the point where I think what happened was I lost some friendships as an adult, and having the lens of being able to understand why I lost those friends because of my behavior and because of my actions. And then also seeing how their actions and behaviors were also unhealthy. So it's kind of the getting to the point in life where I had enough clarity and enough understanding to see things from the outside for kind of what they really were, right? And then looking at my actions, because it always comes back to, what can I do? What are my actions? How can I control this? And I don't mean control the relationship, but it's like, what can I do? What steps can I take to show up and be the type of friend that I want to be? But also, because I think that one of the things that I did, whether I did it consciously or subconsciously, but I think this is probably true, because as I'm sitting here, this thought that just occurred to me that nobody else is aware of at this point because it's still inside of my head. It's true. Let's move on. No, I wasn't all that discerning when it came to friends.
Yes.
Where it was like, oh, cool. Like Alan was a great example. I was forced to be friends with him because we were forced into the same situation together. Mm-hmm. Right. And forced might be a little strong. You're 6 years old, right?
You were forced.
You're being disciplined for stuff in first grade. Not a big deal. But, all of my friends from that point on, it's like, who's next to me? Cool. We're friends now. Right. It's your group of people that you're hanging out with, that you're growing up with. They're the boys that are in my class. We're playing baseball together. Like, it's not, who do I want to be a friend with? It's, these are the people that are around me. So it's like, oh, you're here, we're friends, right? I didn't have a lot of discernment. And because of that, I wouldn't choose to not be friends with somebody because of all the reasons why I probably shouldn't have, right? Because I also felt like when I say I needed friends, like I want friends. Like I have this kind of like unquenchable, that's probably the anxious part of me. That's like, somebody just love me, please. Like I've got this thing inside of me where I want friends in my life. And some of it's the unhealthy part. That's the anxious part. But I also see how incredible they are. Do you know what I mean? Like the experiences that I've had over the course of my life with really good friends, some of the greatest experiences, some of the most incredible moments, even just the simplest of moments, even just the, like the type of experiences that you can have with a really good, close friend, those are pretty magical. And they're very, very different than those magical moments that like you and I have, right? A romantic relationship, obviously full of magical, incredible moments, but there's something different about those moments with friends. And I really enjoy those moments. I really like having those connections. So they're important to me. And I guess I was saying we needed to go through and talk about what we're doing differently.
Yeah.
Am I doing that?
Well, you're not.
Or am I just rambling?
You're starting. No, you're definitely not rambling. I've got the rambling covered. Don't you worry. You were starting to talk about how the awareness that you didn't really have discernment on what was a healthy friendship to pursue or not, which is something that you're doing differently now. And I'm relating to, I'm now like, I have that discernment on friends that I'm going to keep feeding the relationship, and friends, acquaintances that I'm like, this is just going to go ahead and be here. Yeah. I'm not going to feed something that is unhealthy anymore. Yeah.
That discernment part is really important.
Yeah.
And it's hard because essentially it's a boundary that we're setting, like for me, for example, you described it perfectly, where it's like, okay, I'm no longer putting a lot of energy into quote unquote this friendship or this relationship because for a myriad of reasons why, right? But that choice and that decision, first and foremost, is a choice and a decision about my worth and my value. Like, I actually care about how I'm treated.
Yes.
Right? Never had that
Right.
before. That wasn't, like, that's not on my bingo card my whole life growing up, especially in the space of friends. I'm always second, third, fourth, fifth. Like, I will take the brunt of whatever bullshit exists simply so that we can continue to have a friendship, because they're so important to me and because I want to be in a relationship with people. And that's different now.
Yeah.
Where I actually care about this guy named Craig, and I want to make sure that he's being treated the way that I want him to be treated, right? When things don't feel good, I don't want to be treated that way. So that's an interesting shift.
That's the shift, you know, right there. Just like the fact that you're not just laying your head on the chopping block and just be like, oh, if somebody at least holds the chopper, whatever they use for the chopping block, if somebody at least holds that, then they're my friend because they're close to me. And you're like, here, just be my friend. You know, that's such a huge shift to realize you're like, the fuck? Like, no, I'll stand next to somebody because you're a good friend. You love big. You love really big. And you show up. You're one of those friends that show up. And now you're starting to allow a shift that if people aren't going to show up for you, you're not going to bleed out for them. That's still like kind of a little bit of a struggle. You will, you know, you're going to give
Hey, that's my codependency
lot
right there.
to a friend. But you get to the point where you're like, okay. I'm not going to be the only one in this space. So no judgment, nothing, but I'm just going to go ahead and, you know, I'm not feeding this thing that isn't going to like show up with me. You know, it's just like, I don't think I'm using the right words to show what you do now, but you are really discerning really well. You are feeding healthy relationships. You're giving relationships a chance, and maybe, you know, like that's different. And you're, I'm in my head. I just got nervous again. I'm like, I didn't want to have this conversation. I've been really struggling with this conversation.
I know. Can we get to what is the thing underneath all of that?
No, we're talking about you.
Okay.
I'm pointing out how wonderful you are.
Cool.
Stay with
Keep
me.
it up. Keep it up.
Stay
Let's hear
with
it.
me.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Tell me some more. How amazing is Craig?
You're so amazing.
No, I think you're
but
right.
You're like holding those boundaries. That is
Yeah.
a huge shift on what you're doing different. So what else do you see that you're doing different in that department, Mr. Amazing?
I mean, I think that is a big one. Obviously, like you said, right? I do think it's codependency. I think that codependency is how I do friendship. It's just how I do relationships, period. And I have to learn how not to do that. I feel like I can go back and I can look at like all of these really long-term, lifelong kind of friendships that I had, or even just like, you know, intense friendship periods with different people. And it's not say I can't, but I see them all through that lens of like, oh, just really codependent.
Yeah.
Just tons of codependency and unhealthy codependency. I don't know if there's a healthy codependency.
Oh, there is. It's the one we have.
There might be, right? A healthy codependency, like, sure, there's some form of it.
Well, this is not that episode though. Right
Anyways, what else am I doing differently?
Yeah.
I think that I'm also being way less obsessed. Like, what I mean by that is, I'm okay with friendships not working out.
Yeah.
And that is new. That's a new thing. I wasn't always that way. And I'm also okay with things. I was about to say I'm okay with things taking longer, but I don't think that's true. I think the anxious part of me is like, this friendship's taking too long. This needs to happen now. I'm very much like, you like stuff? I like stuff. We're best friends forever.
Did we just become best friends? Let's go do karate.
Exactly. That's 100% me. I'm like, oh my God, do you like drinking water? I fucking love drinking water. We're meant to be together forever. We're best friends. Right? It's always the silliest stuff. But
connection's powerful. I mean, we can talk about that and kind of make fun of it, but the truth is connections are powerful, and I think they're supposed to be felt.
Yeah.
And the fact that when you see connections that are meaningful and you allow them to build connection, I think that's a beautiful thing that a lot of people struggle with. You know, they keep those boundaries up, keep those barriers up. Like connections are healthy. Those are like, you have those sparks.
Things in common, all those kind of things.
So when you find somebody that like also likes to drink water, you know, there's a point of like, there's something really beautiful about that. Your like connection is a beautiful thing.
When my therapist said something to me back in the day when I was seeing him, and he talked about having, because all of my adult friends, like not all of my adult friends, but all of my friends that I, you know, had as an adult, started relationships as an adult. And the majority of them are work related, right? So that's how you meet people as an adult, right? You meet people at work. And because so much of my career was in law enforcement, or so much of my time as an adult was in law enforcement, the friends that I was meeting obviously are in law enforcement. And so his term that he used was like, was it him or was it yoga? Was it, do you remember? I think it was yoga. Yeah. It was, so it's not a therapist. Well, not my therapist. It was our yoga teacher. I was on a call with him, and he referred to them as like wartime friends. Yeah. He's like, you need some peacetime friends because you're not at war anymore. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And all of the friends that I had during that time period of my life when I was a cop, I'm not really friends with any of them anymore. Yeah. Now you're still acquaintances, and you know, you still wish somebody happy birthday on Facebook every year and like their posts and things like that, but I'm not on the phone with them. I'm not spending time with them. I'm not texting with them. We're just not friends anymore. And that stuck with me so much, the idea that I need to find some peacetime friends. But it is still, it's very challenging and hard for me because I relate so much to the type of men that are wartime friends. Yeah. And the men that tend to gravitate towards the careers, jobs, professions, lifestyles that type of energy creates, right? So jiu-jitsu is really hard because it's full of a lot of men that are kind of like in the same, you know, they're cut from the same cloth as wartime friends. So it's hard, but I'm learning how to discern. I think in the beginning of hearing that term and having him point that out to me, where it's like, yeah, you've had a lot of wartime friends and now you need to find some peacetime friends. I got too hyper-focused on that and what I needed to happen. And I think what has happened underneath and kind of behind the scenes is I had to find a lot of peace. I had to become more peaceful and more at peace with myself. And that has only happened within the last little bit, right? The reality is that I have been at war for a very long time, or at least what it has felt like, right? I've been in chaos and fighting for things for a very long time, since I was little. Yeah. And now I'm more at peace with my life, more at peace with myself, which means now I'm starting to, I think, find some peacetime friends. Yeah. Some people that are comfortable in peaceful things and peaceful environments and peaceful times. Right. That's weird.
Doing a really good job with that. And when you recognize certain behaviors and patterns, you're not cultivating those. You know, you can decide for yourself if this is going to be a healthy relationship for you, and you don't move towards the ones that are detrimental. Yeah. You don't move towards relationships that create chaos. And before, I felt like you really navigated towards chaotic relationships.
For sure.
And so that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you, what do you think you're doing differently?
What do I think I'm doing? On another podcast, we talked about how, like when we go to attachment styles, how avoidant is also anxious. They just show it differently.
Yeah.
Because you have anxious that draws and anxious that pushes away, that walls off. And so
Looking for the perfect gift for someone that you love? Try thinking beyond the material things and get them the most unique, unforgettable gift possible. A custom song from Songfinch. Songfinch lets you create an original studio quality song inspired by your own life and the ones you love. It's completely unique, personal to you and your story, and will last a lifetime. Songfinch walks you through an easy 4-step process to create your original song. Just tell them who the song's for, provide some personal details about your story, and let them know the type of song that you want. Then pick your favorite Songfinch artist, or get matched with one. They'll write, record, and produce your custom song in just 4 to 7 days. Head over to our website. It's stephandcraig.co and click on the link for Songfinch. When it comes time for checkout, use the code Steph and Craig. You're going to save $20 off your order. Once you get your custom song, be sure to tag us because we want to hear it. We're probably a lot like you, where we had some pans that had been kicking around our kitchen since we met, actually. They're over a decade old, and it was time for them to go. Lucky for us, we found Heritage Still. Heritage Still offers premium cookware that's made right here in the USA. It's actually made here in our backyard in Tennessee. We ditched our old pans and we got ourselves an entire set of Heritage Still. All of their cookware has 5-ply construction, which gives you superior heat distribution and retention when cooking. They also offer a lifetime warranty, which is really hard to find nowadays. Their cookware is versatile for all cooktops. We have a gas range and we absolutely love the way our Heritage pans heat up. They're chemical-free, oven-safe, easy to clean, and Heritage Still is committed to sustainability. They use environmentally conscious practices when producing their cookware. For listeners of the podcast right now, you can save 10% on your order. Head over to heritagestill.us/Steph and Craig, and don't forget to use the code Steph and Craig at checkout to save that 10%.
like, one of the things about me is that I do love big too. And when making friends, it's easy for me to like somebody. It's easy for me to like them. It's easy for me to like them and form that bond. But it's hard for me to allow them the opportunity to get to know me. I keep it very focused, right? It's not hard for me to like them, but it's hard for me to let them see me. It's hard. I don't start with vulnerability. I don't see where they're going to match me on that. I just become a safe space for them to be vulnerable. And that's how I friend. And it's because I'm scared of being hurt. It's because when I've been vulnerable, it's been hurt. It's because, you know what I mean? I'm very anxious about that. So instead of drawing, I push.
Can I offer not a flip side?
This is how I've been.
I know, no, hold on.
Okay.
Because you said, I'm scared of being hurt.
Yeah.
So there's the reason for the action, right? In your mind. And I'm not denying that, right? It's your experience. You definitely have that. I think there's a component of it as well where you feel like your only worth and value is if you're giving something. Where if you're, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm a good friend and I'm holding space, right? That's the only way that I'm ever going to be valued to anybody, that anybody's ever going to want to be my friend. Yeah, I'm afraid of getting hurt, but I bet primary that's actually where my worth and value is. Everything else, if you really knew everything else, if I don't like me anyways, I don't have much to offer you. Does that
podcast over?
Does that ring of truth for you?
Yeah.
Just
Very
another
deeply.
flip side,
just
maybe?
another flip side. I feel that extensively.
I can only speak it because I feel it as well. And when you said it, it started to light up in me.
And you're like, oh, I know
and I'm
that.
I'm really worthy. Trust me, I'm a really good friend. I'll be there for you. I'll do everything for you. I'll help you through everything. We can talk about all of your problems. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about what's going on in me. It's not a big deal. This is my value and my worth.
Also, I'm really good at it.
Yeah, because you've had a fucking lifetime of doing it.
I also, it's a skill that I have that I can see people.
For sure.
And I love activating people. I love helping people believe in themselves. I love cheering people on. I love that. So it's also confusing to see the flip side of that, to also be oh, that is attached to my worth, when I genuinely love I love empowering others. I love being yeah, I see you. I I like friending, I like, but then it is. I feel like that's my worth. If I'm not doing something for you, then
why would you be a friend with me, right?
Right.
Why would you pick me? Why would you stay with me?
Yeah. So the way that I have phrased this in my head is I'm not going into friendships thinking that I have to fix anything for anybody or solve anything for anybody.
No fixing or saving.
Or like when they're vulnerable with me, that's where it stays. They're vulnerable, right? I can listen really well, but now I'm not having to, try to fix anything. I'm not trying to like, my friends, I'm not coaching you, it's not like we're friends. You're not coaching clients. We don't see coaching clients any longer. So I have to remember that friendships are not coaching clients. And one of the things that I've started to do with that again is just listen, allow myself to be a safe space for them to be without me trying to fix things. And I start off with vulnerability. I don't wait to feel safe for vulnerability. And it's not like, I'm not like, here's trauma dumping. I'm not doing that. But it's like, oh, I'm going to give you a piece. I'm going to do the thing that's really hard for me. And I'm going to go against the grain. And I'm going to open up about something to you. And like, that's that thing of like, and it also came from the yoga, the yogis, like lead with vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like, and see how they respond, and people that meet with vulnerability, like coming back, I'm cultivating. And it is something that I have to try. When I get asked something about myself, to not have a, what do I call them? Like reflex question or what? That's not the word I use. I can't even remember the word that I use that I tell myself not to like have a rebound question or a slingshot, not to have a slingshot question back. So when
What's a slingshot question?
When I'm like, don't slingshot it. When somebody asks me, because you have the, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you? You throw it back out there, the pleasantries, what are you doing today? Oh, nothing, this. How about you? And there's parts where it's really pleasant and it's like a pleasantry communication back and forth. And I don't want to be like, how are you? Good. It's not like that. But
I'm fine.
Fine, right? Fine.
And then you just stare at them awkwardly.
Right? But I'm trying to realize, like, chances are, they're like, especially if it's somebody that I'm building a friendship with, when they ask me a question, they want to hear the answer. And so I want to give them that answer in a way that's like, that they know that like, oh, I heard, and I'm going to respond back to you. And I'm not going to turn around and dismiss by asking the same question. Like, I'm going to ask you something different. I'm going to ask you something that shows that I know something about you. I'm going to ask you, I don't know, just something. I'm trying to change the question. And it doesn't have to be, what's your deepest, darkest secret? Tell me that. It's just, I'm going to ask something different because I don't want it to feel like a check the box, a slingshot conversation. And I'm doing a terrible job right now because I've also never talked about it. And it's something new that I'm having awareness of and that I'm practicing. And my first instinct is when I'm like, what are you doing today? And then what are you doing today? Is if I don't ask this back, I'm being rude. If I don't ask the same question they ask me, I'm being rude, because it's the assumption that, or like the thing that they're not really interested in what you have to say. They just want you to ask them. And that's not the case. And that's, you feel like, oh, I will bypass my answer so we can get to what it really is, which is you getting asked the question so you can talk about yourself. And like, what's this is expected. Because I've had situations where it's like, I don't really care about your answer, but I want you to hear me. And those aren't the dynamics I'm in. And it doesn't mean that if you're like saying something, somebody asked how your day is and you said, my day's great, how was your day? It doesn't mean that they're terrible or you're terrible by any means. It's just something that I've noticed, something with patterns where I don't really give answers. And then I just divert it back so you can tell me all about your stuff. So I'm showing up by telling you about something about my day. I'm showing up by telling you something and then asking a different question, even if it's at a different time. If it's in a text, like asking it at a different time, just allowing myself to answer and be there, and then coming back with a question later that is not a slingshot question. And that's an exercise that I'm practicing on building and going back and forth with vulnerability and still seeing this person that I want to see, but also showing them me. Does that make sense? Or did I just ramble way too much?
Not at all, baby. It makes total sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good practice for sure.
And, okay, another thing that I'm doing is if I feel like there's an issue in a relationship, I try to, or at least I did this, I speak to it. I set up a time to speak to it. And like I show up with vulnerability here. This is a concern I have. This is what I want out of this relationship. And then,
that is such a huge one.
It was really hard. I felt really stupid after. I was like, you're an idiot.
Yeah, but that, like, if I look at, friendships through the lens of codependency, that right there is a massive thing.
Yeah.
Like a massive positive thing, right? That's not codependent behavior. That's securely attached, healthy adult, the ability to communicate, manage conflict. That's huge.
Okay, so I'm secure now. I graduated and I'm going to go to bed.
Good.
Okay, I'm tired.
Good, you're all done.
Inappropriate humor. There's one more.
Okay.
There's one more that I definitely want to speak to. I'm allowing there to be a positive, healthy exchange in the relationship instead of it being like, I'm allowing friendships and like in that space to be helping each other too. So
not all one-sided.
Not all one-sided. So if somebody is like, I'm going through this and I'm talking, like helping them go through stuff and see stuff, because I also have a set of skills. I have a very unique set of skills. I'm so uncomfortable right now. But
we're still going to get to the root of that.
I let them help me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I let them help me. Yeah. I'm not like, I'm fine, I got this. Like if I'm having a hell of a time, I let them help me too. I'll take it too. Like I'm building this really healthy one where we show up so hard for each other. And I've also communicated to them, it's really hard for me to talk when I'm going through stuff. It's hard for me to show up. I'm not going to be able to respond for a while when it's hard. A lot of times if I'm going through something, I try to message and be like, I'm in the thick of it right now. I'm probably not going to be responding well, but just
give them a heads up.
Give them a heads up. And sometimes I can't do that. But we've had this conversation. We always touch bases. So we know there's times. And luckily this friend also has the same. So we know when we don't have those spaces, like we've already even communicated about what it's like for us and how we'll show up and how we're going to come back to the relationship. So it's like the partner thing of when you end a conversation, you're the one to come back. So when you're the one that takes a pause, you unpause it. And we keep showing up in these dynamics. And as I'm saying them, I felt like I've taken these little steps in a situation that is really hard for me, that is really scary, that I just became really comfortable with like, yeah, I don't need friends. I'm good. I went from needing friends, I don't need them, to trying to rebuild that. I think I'm actually doing way better than I thought I was doing.
You're doing really, really good.
Yeah.
Like those things that you mentioned, especially that one about being like, hey, what's going on? I feel like something's going on and I want to talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. That's huge. I have a question for you.
Okay.
It's an easy question.
Okay.
Take a deep breath. Everything's okay. Why, see, it's an easy question.
Is it? Because if you're trying to think of how to ask me.
No, it's an easy question. Because I was thinking about how important friends are to me. And I'm curious if you feel the same. What is the importance to you at this stage of your life to having friends in your life? Is it something that is of high priority for you? Is it something that you're just killing time with because, we're trying to do stuff in life and we're having interactions with people, so we have to figure out how to make those the least painful as possible? Or is it no, friendship is a priority for me and it's something that I'm, prioritizing? I'm curious. Genuinely.
That's a great question. Friendship has not been a priority for me. Friendship has been like there's been so much, I didn't have energy for it beyond. And I also had unhealthy dynamics with it where I felt like I had to, you know what I mean? Where I guess people don't know what I mean when they're not sitting across from me and watching me talk with my hands.
Haven't been married to
Where
you
I was
forever.
like, yeah, when I was like, give, and not allowing them the opportunity to give back. And I'm not like, that doesn't feel good when somebody never lets you, you know, you don't cultivate safety in that relationship when you're always the one that is seen.
Yeah.
Right. If you're like, I need to see you too. And so friendship, I've just been really afraid. I'm still afraid of it. I'm still afraid, but friendship has shifted to where it is important to me. Like I want friends. And I've got the story too. I'm like, I'm never going to have any best friends because I'm too old now. You know, everybody, like you've got your friends for so young. Like I'm never going to fit into the group. Everybody's already established. I'm like, really? Okay. That's like the same as saying, well, I'm never going to find anybody else to love me. There's no one else in the world. And I'm like, okay. So once I had awareness of I'm just never going to have a best friend. I'm never going to fit in. Everybody's established and I'll always be the odd one out. So there's no point in even trying. It's like, okay, I hear that. And so that story will still play, but I recognize it as bullshit. I recognize it as bullshit. And I move like, oh, I'm going to cultivate really happy, healthy relationships. And people, like, I started jiving like this. There's one that I feel like it's still a new relationship. It's still a new friendship, but it's going on it's coming up to a year since I've known this person. And I feel like I really like this friend. I really like her a lot. And I believe that she feels the same about me. Like it's not that, oh, I wonder if she likes me. Like she likes me. Like she's my friend. I really like her. And I feel like that when we we haven't even met in person. How bizarre is that? Like, hello, internet. Hello, modern age of online groups where you somehow find your people and you connect because of Zooms and social medias and platforms where people are doing things, and you get to join groups and challenges and find your best friend who's, one of your best friends. So it's important to me. That relationship feels really good. It's really healthy as far as I know from now. I'm learning and I'm evolving. There might be unhealthy things, but as far as I know now, I'm doing this in a healthy way. And we show up for each other. We have fun with each other. We're relaxed with each other. We inspire each other. We motivate each other. Like, I'm like, that's fucking amazing.
Right?
This is always what I wanted a friendship to be.
Yeah.
I don't have to put on my I'm got it together hat. I can be like, I'm really kind of fucked up right now, and it's all okay. And it's just, I also get to win really big around them. It's like, she's just really supportive and really loving, and I get to be really supportive and really loving. And we know details about each other's lives and about each other's kids, and we connect and can reach out. And it's
I want to point out something real quick to you.
Okay. I'm probably saying it too. Okay. But
you're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong.
Okay.
I should have let you finish instead of interrupting you. Right. But I did anyways.
You did. It's okay.
We're interrupted.
It's okay.
Because I think, well, what I'm going to point out is the reason that you're cultivating such a healthy relationship with this person, right? You've got such a good friendship that's building, and it's so all of these things. It's not just like accidental that this person landed in your lap and suddenly like you are in that relationship building it by the things that you're doing. You're showing up in a different way. You're showing up in a healthy way. You're taking steps. You're doing all of that work. And yes, of course, somebody on the other side, right, is returning all of that. But I think sometimes, like I said, sometimes for me, it's just like, I hope today, the universe will bless me with a friend that falls out of thin air, and then I just get to be friends with them, right? That I don't know how to make friends. So it's like, oh, you're cultivating it.
Yes,
you're doing
am.
the work. And I think that's a really big deal.
I have awareness of that.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool.
I definitely do. I'm very much aware of the way that I'm showing up, how I'm showing up, where I'm taking an active approach in this, like, and I'm not feeding relationships that aren't healthy, you know?
Do you think
I'm feeding healthy spaces, and I have more than one healthy space, you know?
Do you think women do friends? I know they do friends differently. Like
Yeah.
that's not, that's not something, but do you think that women do friends better than men do?
Now, I can only speak from being a woman. I don't know what it's like to be a guy and have a guy friend bond. I don't know. But one advantage that women have is that their emotions and feelings are more welcomed and accepted to be shared out loud. That we don't have the same societal stigma attached to being like touchy with each other. Like I can hug the hell out of my friends. I can like hug them. I can like we can sit on the couch. We can, we're allowed to be physical with each other without it being something else. We're allowed to cry with each other. Like I don't have to worry if I cry with my friend that she's going to be like, saying derogatory things. And a lot of guys haven't had, as far as I know, right, don't get that same, or haven't felt like they had that same. Now, things are changing. Guys are showing up more vulnerable for each other. There are guys that will very much break that ridiculous, just crappy stigma, that whole societal standard that's just bullshit, and are hugging each other, are saying they love each other, are being vulnerable with each other, are being, raw with each other. If you want to go, like, you're doing all of the things, you're being what you feel is masculine, very masculine in that space with them. And you're also being like the full masculine energy, which is emotional, which is loving, which is caring, which is strong, which is protective. It's not the toxic masculinity that was so much the societal norm. So I don't know that girls do it better. I just think girls have been allowed to do it better. They've had more access to tools that guys have had to shut down and hide away. And I think that guys get to do it the same way if they create that space of where they cultivate those relationships with each other and allow those healthy connections to form, which again is really hard and scary when you have society coming down and shaming you and feeling like, do I get to be vulnerable with this person, or are they going to, pull out the toxicity and make it a terrible experience? So I just think we have access to more tools, more ability or more freedom, more privilege is privilege. Have a little bit more privilege there.
I want to have you help me flesh this out because I want to understand it a little bit more. But there's a program in my brain that like that there's a like a system in place for friends. There's a scale, and at the top of the scale is the best friend, and then I've got everything after that, right? Everything that kind of different levels of friendships and acquaintances and things like that. But at the top of that, there's the best friend, and having a best friend, knowing who my best friend was, being able to say that this is my best friend, like that's been a very important thing to me. And I don't think it's healthy because I don't think it's realistic. It's not to say that you can't have a best friend. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with best friends, right? That's not like what I'm saying, but it's this obsession about structuring everything in that way where it's like, who's my best friend right now? I don't have a best friend in my life right now, right? I'm failing, or I'm not worthy, or constantly seeking out like, who's my best friend? Maybe this guy's my best, blah, 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 blah. This obsession with the idea of having like a best friend. What is that, you think?
Well, as we said at the beginning, we are now giving energy to the space in a healthier way. We're just starting this out.
Yeah.
And like, obviously we've been doing it for a while because we're able to make healthy changes and choices and see, but I don't know, because I also like, I feel like we can have multiple best friends. Like, I feel like when it comes to friends, we can totally be poly friends. We can have so many friends. We can have so many loves. We can have so many friends. But I also like crave best friend energy.
Right.
I very much want that. So I don't know.
Are you
if
kind of in the same boat?
I feel like I am really in the same boat, but I am in the same boat, and I don't know. I don't have enough to know about that yet. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's something that naturally happens. I know it's like a platonic relationship, but I don't know.
Do you think the same way, that you're like waiting to see who your best friend's going to be?
Oh, who's going to make the cut?
No, it's not. It's not like you're sitting there.
I've got.
It's not like you're sitting there measuring it out or anything like that. But it's like, does your brain have that same program where you're like, who's my best friend? I need a best friend. Are they going to be my best friend? I lost my best friend. Are you obsessed with the idea of a best friend, or are you thinking about just friends in general? And then, maybe that's my best friend one day or something.
I am pretty hopeful for multiple best friends. I want to have multiple best friends. I want to have multiple best friends. And I would love, like, I think it would be so much fun if there was a group of best friends, right? And
you know what I think it is for me, I'm realizing as we're talking about it? It's that I want to be somebody's best friend.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I think it's an unhealthy thing, is that it's coming from that anxious part of me that doesn't feel truly picked, truly chosen, truly loved. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm on this constant. It's a good word. I like it.
Oh, good. Goodness.
God, she was really constant it up, wasn't she?
Oh, boy. Uh-oh.
That's a good word. Anyways, I'm on this constant hunt for a best friend because I want to be somebody's best friend.
Yeah.
Or I want to feel like I'm somebody's best friend. And underneath all of it, it's really just this thing of like, I want to be loved. I want to be chosen. I want to be picked. And unhealthy as it is, like, I fully acknowledge that it comes from this like wounded attachment from childhood. I want to be chosen above other people. I want to be your best friend. I want to be the person that you think of first when you think of like your friend, right? I want to be, because there's certain circumstances in life where you're like, oh, that's a best friend thing. Like, you know what I mean? There's certain things in life where a best friend is called for, or like enter in stage left, best friend, right? There's something that comes up in life, or there's a thing, right? And it's like, who are you going to call?
Who's my person?
Who's your person? Who's your best friend? I want to be that. And it's totally this anxious attachment thing. It's totally this lack of worth. It's totally this lack of self-esteem.
I think it is the lack of worth, lack of self-esteem with that. I don't think, are you feeling okay?
I'm fine. I'm just stretching, babe.
I don't think that the fact that you want you want a person, you want a best friend, I don't think that that's unhealthy. I think that that's a very natural thing to have those bonds. We're supposed to have bonds. We're supposed to make connections. Like, this whole experience, like, you know that, you say that is about connection. We're supposed to, and it's not, you're not doing anything wrong if you're not having those. Please don't hear that. This isn't singling anybody out that struggles with connection, because I get it. But the fact that you have these healthy drives to have somebody show up for you the way that you show up for them, to be chosen, like, you're moving in that direction. And it's wanting connection, wanting somebody to show up. The thing that I would ask you before, it's just like, because obviously, what are you going to do with that? What are you, that's not what I'm going to ask. I'm trying to come up with a nice way to say it, but what I'm just going to say it. Can I just say it? Is that okay with you if I just say it?
Yeah.
Are you ready to believe when somebody likes you? Are you ready to believe when somebody chooses you? Because you're never going to have that if you never allow yourself to see it. How many times I've seen it and you don't believe it? What would that feel like to, I don't need to go with what would it feel like. Just like, are you ready to believe it when somebody says that you matter to them?
I mean, when I say, because you phrased the question, are you ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for that. But do I believe that? And I don't. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't. And it's not just friendships. You know, as we're sitting here talking about it and kind of looking a little bit deeper into what that thing is for me, I don't feel picked by you. Like, I don't feel like I'm, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a big part of me that still is just like, it's not that I don't believe that you, I believe that you love me. I believe that you care, all of those things, right? But I'm talking about this little wounded part of me that's inside that doesn't believe it. Yeah. And that's the same part that wants a best friend. That's the same part that wants to be picked. That's the same part that really wants somebody to be like, you're my person. I choose you. And I want to be able to feel that when that happens, because I totally believe that it happens. I believed that it's happened multiple times in my life, right? With friends, with relationships. Like, I believe that you love me. I believe that I'm like your person. But that part of me doesn't. And that part of me is really, when I say loud, I guess it is really loud still. There's a part of me that has a hard time believing another story than that. And there's a place for me to get curious. You asked a good question.
I have another one for you.
Well, we're out of time, folks.
No, we're not.
The podcast that you're listening to, go ahead.
I would really like to ask you this question.
Okay, let's hear it.
How do you show up for that part of you?
Like that part of me that doesn't feel that? How do I show up for it?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Would that make sense of why that part might not feel chosen?
Yeah. Yeah, when we get really into like IFS work and talking about parts work and inner child stuff, the awareness of, like, this is a big one for me, because I have awareness of a lot of things now where I'm showing up for different parts of me, right? Where it's like, oh, cool, Craig's here. Like, I feel safe now. I know that Craig's here. He's on it. He's got my back. I don't have to worry about things. I can go, oh, thank goodness, Craig showed up. And there's a lot of parts of me that I'm, what did the Natalie Daring, what did she say? It's the blended.
Unblend and befriend.
Yeah, that part of me that we're talking about right now, I'm still blended with.
Yeah.
Because your question right there answered it, where it was like, oh, I'm not showing up for that part because I don't have awareness of that part as a separate part of me. That just feels like me. Okay. That just feels like a program, meaning that just feels like how I think and feel.
That's really big awareness.
It is big awareness.
That's really big awareness. You did really good right there.
Thank you.
You're like, I support so much and encourage you to devote a lot of time to that part of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that part of you is really, really worth it.
Yeah. I'm curious as to what that part of me, because that part, as we're talking about it and fleshing it out a little bit more, right, has nothing to do with friends.
No.
That part's not like, oh, I got hurt by a friend when I was 5 years old or 6 years old, or has nothing to do with friends. It just has to do with feeling loved and accepted and being wanted.
Yes.
So, lots to think about. Can we end now, though?
We can.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Too much feeling. I was thinking before we did this episode too, because I was going to pull an audible at the end there before.
An audible?
Yeah, that's a sport term, babe. You're an athlete now. It's not a pickleball term, though.
No, Audible is the app that reads books to you.
Correct.
So you can multitask.
Okay.
What is Audible for the...
An audible in football is when you change the play at the last minute.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, we're going to go out and do this play.
Is it like where you psych them out?
And then the quarterback at the last minute calls an audible, and then everybody shifts to the left or shifts to the right. Or
turns out they didn't hand the football back to the quarterback, or the quarterback didn't throw it and he's running it.
Yes.
Okay.
So
That's an audible.
before we were going to record,
no sports terms.
We need to do a fucking light episode.
We do.
Yeah.
We so do.
We need to do a lighthearted, fun episode, and maybe that's next week or next episode.
What fun things should we talk about? Should we just, I don't know, maybe we should just dose and get on and just talk.
Let's get drunk, do an episode.
Right.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is a wonderful episode about friendships. If you want to be friends, we're in the business of looking for best friends.
We're really good at it.
No, I think that we're not alone in this space.
I don't think we are
think
either.
that there's going to be a lot of people that resonate and connect to this, because it's a hard, it's just hard.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships are hard, whether they're primary partners, romantic relationships, friendships, they're fucking hard no matter how you shake it.
I've got a book on it that I'm getting ready to read when I have time to read that book. And then I'm going to be an expert.
Excellent.
And then we'll have the author on the podcast. And then everybody will be able to cultivate healthy friendships because why? Because we all do better when we heal together.
I think what stood out over the course of this episode of how we are doing friends better today than we ever have before is because of how much work we've done on ourselves.
Yes.
And how much we are valuing our self-worth, that also how comfortable we are with saying no to things, how comfortable we are with boundaries, all of this kind of stuff that we've never really done before in our life, which is why we've had some tumultuous friendships, but it's definitely getting better. So I'm grateful for that.
Me too.
Let's do it, baby.
Too. Okay, let's do it.
Expect the best.
Oh, I was on the wrong person. Do it again. Do it again.
Expect the best.
Plan for the greatest.
And we'll see you all soon. Go subscribe to us on YouTube.
Wait and see, you and me, we were meant to be.
We want to make something perfectly clear. This podcast is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as a substitute for professional advice. We're sharing with you our own personal experiences and insights, things we have found to be helpful on our healing journey. But we are not licensed therapists. If you need help, it's important to seek out a qualified professional. Remember, we believe that we all do better when we heal together. See you soon.